2, 1.
Welcome in, Husker Extra Podcast. I'm Chris. On my cell phone, there's Parker. There's Steve. It's 4:13 p.m. here on a Thursday afternoon in Lincoln, Nebraska. We just had some breaking news. Sam Hoiberg, Lincoln Pius 10th standout, is going to walk on for the Nebraska basketball team, play for his dad, Fred. That news came down. I'm waiting to talk to Sam on the phone here hopefully soon and get his thoughts on the matter. And yeah, the first off-season addition for Fred Hoiberg's program happens today in the form of a walk-on.
Sam, if you hear this on the podcast, please call Chris back.
Yeah, if you're listening live to the podcast right now, Sam, please call me.
That'd be a technological miracle, but if it's true, please do it.
Yep, we would appreciate that.
What do you know about Sam? What do you know about it?
Yeah, good player. Was Lincoln Pius 10th's leading scorer this year, averaged 15 points a game, about a little over 4 rebounds a game. Team lost in the first round of the state tournament, Class A state tournament. Millard West hit a shot at the buzzer where they threw like a baseball kick pass, like 3/4 the length of the court, and the kid made a layup to win the game. So, yeah, good player. Sam actually tweeted out a cool picture with his announcement. It was him up on the ladder with his twin brother Charlie and Fred after one of Iowa State's Big 12 tournament titles. And the kiddos were little, and Fred's swinging the net over his head. So. Called it a lifelong dream to play for his dad, and now he's going to do it. So congrats to Sam, congrats to Fred, congrats to the Hoibergs.
That's pretty cool, Baz.
Yeah. It'd be even cooler if I could talk to Sam about it. That'd be cool.
It'll happen. Life of a reporter.
Come on, Sam.
Sam's first big test as a Husker. How fast do you get back to Baz?
Yeah, Sam's probably on the golf course right now, working on his short game. He's a pretty good golfer.
Is he a good golfer?
Really good golfer. Yeah, there's some thought he might play golf collegiately.
Is that right?
I think all those Hoiberg boys are pretty good golfers. Jack, the oldest one's a good golfer. He had a scholarship offer to South Dakota, then walked on at Michigan State to play hoops. And Sam and Charlie, the two twins, are both pretty good golfers too. So,
what about the old man?
Old man can play a little. Got a little 3/4 swing from the couple videos I've seen of Fred swinging a golf club. So there's some athleticism there, obviously.
What's a 3/4 swing?
He takes it back about 3/4.
He doesn't bring it all back?
He doesn't take it all the way back around. He's about 3/4. But he's long levered, as one is wont to say. He's got the long levers, long legs, long arms, so he can generate club head speed without taking it all the way back. So he's all right.
As you've been busy now, you got a busy weekend too.
Yeah, got a little baseball starting tomorrow. First home games of the season for the baseball team. First games with fans for any Nebraska team since March 11th of last year, which was also the last home baseball game. They're going to allow 2,700 in. I would assume tickets will get snatched up pretty quickly. We'll spread them out throughout Haymarket Park on the berms and in the bleachers. So that's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to see a game with more than just parents and friends in the stands. It'll be fun to see a good crowd at a game. And it's an important series for Nebraska too, because they're third place in the Big Ten right now. They're playing a Minnesota team that's, I believe, 12th or 13th in the conference and has kind of struggled and is pretty young. So chance for Nebraska to kind of keep the momentum going from what they built last week at Iowa when they won the last 2 games of that series and won the season series with Iowa. So yeah, it's a big weekend for Nebraska taking on Minnesota.
Parker, I just want to ask Chris one more question. Does Nebraska have the pitching to, get into the NCAA tournament and do damage?
I think they do. I think that was one of the big questions was what was the pitching going to look like? And the starters have been good, but the bullpen's been really good. And that's what you need. If you're going to make a tournament run of any type, whether it's a conference tournament, NCAA tournament, you got to have depth. And Nebraska's got that. Their bullpen ERAs, I believe, top 25, top 50 nationally. They don't give up a lot of runs. They don't walk a lot of guys. So I think they like where they're at with their pitching. If they can swing the bats just a little better, which I think that'll come, then they're going to be in pretty good shape, because I think the arms and then the defense behind those arms, Nebraska's second nationally in fielding percentage right now. They've only made 2 errors all year. So pitching and defense take you a long ways. And Nebraska's got those 2 things right now.
Speaking of pitching and Nebraska baseball, did you see young Drew Christo throwing the pill the other night for Alcorn? Holy cow, he's good.
Running it up to about 92 against high school batters when it's about 48 degrees out.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Step in against 93 up in the zone.
Yeah. Here's a 5'7", 135 pounder, and here's 92 and on your hands. Go ahead and make contact with that. young man. Good luck.
Do we still? Oh, there's Baz.
There it is.
Okay, so this is a time. I mean, Baz, you'd be interested in this discussion. Young Parker also has quite a big time coming up in his life with the advent of spring football.
Yes. For the first time ever, Nebraska is going to gather its football team in the spring. They're going to practice a few times.
What a big time.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's going to be remarkable. And then at the end of it, they're going to gather people at Memorial Stadium, and they're going to play a game, and they're going to call it the Red-White Spring Game.
Incredible. Parker, thank you for that.
It's, sometimes you cover seminal moments and you understand that you're just witnessing history. And that's what it feels like right now. That's what it feels like.
This is one of those times. It's historic. There's a buzz, I think you would say, around Lincoln.
Palpable buzz, yes.
There's certainly a buzz here in the Journal-Star offices, I think you would say.
It's exciting.
It is.
I want Parker to approach his job with urgency every day. The advent of spring ball
with a sense of wonder.
Yeah, should foster a sense of wonder and a sense of urgency.
I have both in spades,
right? Like fans are coming back. Like that's fun. Like there's like some light at the end of the tunnel a little bit, right? Like this is what we've been waiting on. So yeah, it is what it is. It's spring football, but there's still something that's going to be kind of exciting at the end of it.
Yeah, that part is cool. It's funny because we've been talking this week about how it was expected, I guess, that the Big Ten was moving toward allowing individual schools and local health departments to have more control or full control over setting attendance. That's been a league policy for the past year to not allow any attendance. And so we had sort of knew that it was, that maybe it was going to happen. The Council of Presidents and Chancellors was meeting this week. But I think that most of the conversation had been about baseball and softball, outdoor spring sports. And so when word came down from the Big Ten yesterday in the morning, all sports effective immediately, it was like, whoa, that was big news. And they included spring football right in the release, which was nice. And, that was nice and clear of them to do. But it was crazy. Like all of a sudden it was just like, oh, fans are coming back like right now. And for baseball, like Baz said, 2,700, they're going to have 2,400 at Devaney for volleyball, the closing, not this coming weekend, but next weekend for a closing series against Penn State. So top five volleyball team at home against Penn State, only 2 regular season matches of the year where fans are allowed. Like you'd be more likely to be able to find a straight ticket to the Super Bowl, I think, than to be able to get into that volleyball match. Maybe not quite that extreme, but those tickets obviously are going to get snapped up by season ticket holders right away. But yeah, SIP, I mean, it is. Spring football starts Monday. Obviously, you're talking about 50% or more of Memorial Stadium now when May 1st rolls around. But it's going to be cool to have fans back, at least in some capacity, at sporting events here this spring.
Yeah, the volleyball, so people understand, you're only getting those tickets if you're a season ticket holder.
Yeah.
Right. Yes.
They're only offered to season ticket holders, correct?
And they even said in the release that they can't guarantee that all season ticket holders will get to attend one of the 2 matches.
Right. So baseball, it's 2,700. The start time for baseball is, I believe, Baz, it's 2 p.m., right?
1 p.m. tomorrow.
Oh, I'm Scott. I always have an error.
Let me double check that.
Okay.
I mean, you do always have an error, but I'm just going to double check. No,
I
it is
always
2 p.m.
have an error.
Okay, so now can we erase that error now?
Yeah, we'll edit that out. We'll edit that out later on. Yeah.
I would like to talk to the official score.
Our crack production team for this podcast will get right on it.
Yeah, post-production will take care of that.
2 p.m. Now that'll affect ticket sales. I mean, not everybody in America can just walk away from work at 1:30 p.m. on a Friday.
No, but 2,700 people in Lincoln we'll probably find a way to do that,
Yeah.
and that was one of the things that came out of yesterday too, that I thought was interesting. A Nebraska spokesman said there's the possibility that they might move some of those Friday start times back, move them to later on now that fans are back, go with the more traditional, maybe a 6 p.m. first pitch or a 7 p.m. first pitch to be able to fill that all out. Because like you said, it's not going to be that easy every Friday to get 2,700 there. So yeah, it would not shock me if, over the next few home series, if you saw those start times get moved back a little bit, especially for Fridays.
Okay, then football, we do have a Zoom session availability with football on Monday. Hey, Parker, now this is the kind of things I should know and I don't. When's the actual first practice?
Yeah, Tuesday. I think it's technically practice number one. I mean, they're back this weekend, more or less. This week that we're going through currently was sort of an off week after the end of winter conditioning, and then I think they have, it's not a practice, but they have, I don't know, meetings or whatever. They have some sort of loose activity on Monday. Practice number one is on Tuesday. So next week they practice Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday. And then from there on, they're in sort of a loose Monday, Wednesday, Friday setup through the rest of April.
I think that we, as a media, sometimes we kind of regard spring football a little loosely, but I don't think coaches do, and I don't think they can. And I think in Nebraska's case specifically, if you're a Nebraska fan, you hope they're very dialed in, because I think we all agree this is a critical time for Frost's program, right?
Yeah. And it's interesting because I feel like when any college football coach will tell you that every year is a critical year, right? I mean, you're either going to be really good or you're trying to get better. You're always trying to get better. But I think when you feel like a program is at a tipping point one way or the other, every step of the way through a year feels a little bit more, there's a higher degree of urgency along with it, which is why, of course, I regard my job with a extreme sense of urgency every day, Sybil.
Right.
Yeah.
Good.
But honestly, though, like it is a big spring, and there's a lot to sort out. And the other thing that I just find, I mean, I find this stuff endlessly interesting as it is, and that's, I guess, probably why I do this for a living. But I think that there's a lot. It's so interesting to me. There are a ton of guys on this roster that this is going to be their first normal spring in college football, either because they're among the 13 scholarship players and handful of walk-ons that are here as mid-year enrollees and just started in the program, or they're among the 40 plus guys that were first-year players in the program last year who had their first spring interrupted or arrived in the summer. So like out of 170 guys that are on the roster right now, I would say, I'm not great at math, but I would bet a third or more, maybe upwards of a third of the roster has never been
55.
Yeah.
55. Yeah.
Yeah. Going through spring for the first time. So, that's a huge, it's not a third, but a quarter maybe of the roster has never done this before. So it's that part of it is interesting too, because there's a lot of development that's going to happen in the next 5 weeks, and Nebraska needs it to, is the bottom line.
It would be nice. We should add before we go on, the conversation always starts, I think, with Nebraska. They have 9 starters back on defense. They have a 3-year starter at quarterback, and then it goes from there. What I would really like to see now, I do miss this. I would not appeal to Frost on this, but it would be nice if we could go over and watch spring practice and get a really good look at Marquise Stepp and a good look at Samori Toure. Some of the newcomers that they're really going to rely hard on. We won't get a good look at him, or Omar Manning. I mean, Omar Manning, we haven't really seen.
Yeah.
There was a time, I think some people wonder, why can't you guys go watch him? Well, we're not allowed to. We have been in the past at times, and I really I really wish we could. But you take what you can get, and we'll just have to try to get a feel as we go here. But those guys are critical.
It's the general plan, and everything's subject to change, obviously. But the general plan is that there might be a couple days when we get to go over there for a half hour or something at the beginning of practice. You don't always. I mean, that's always interesting. I always find it useful. You're not going to draw a lot of sweeping conclusions out of, walk-ons and some one-on-one drill or walk-throughs at the beginning and stretching and some one-on-one drills, but it's still a worthwhile endeavor. I think, there's a lot of, like you say, Sipple, I think the defense, obviously, there's a lot of starters back. On offense, you're going to rely on some new playmakers, the guys you mentioned. So let me say this. Let me ask it to you this way. If you had to come up with 2 or 3 things that you're really interested to see, whether it's on the first day of spring or things that you think we might know, let's put it this way. When we get to the end of spring ball, what are 2 or 3 things that we don't know right now that you think we might have a better handle on after the spring game?
Well, 2 things that come to mind are 2 or 3 things that come to mind. Offensive evolution. I wonder if Frost's offense will evolve a little bit more toward a running game that might resemble the way they did it at Oregon when they had the big running back.
Royce Freeman.
Yeah, Royce Freeman. Now, see, why do I say that? Because they got a running back that's built like Royce Freeman, that looks like Royce Freeman. And last year, you wondered at times why they weren't running the ball more, for instance, against Minnesota. And they have what you think they have a pretty good offensive line. They have a big, good tight end room. And usually when you hear that, you think, okay, this team's probably getting ready to run it. Now, I don't know. So we'll see how that evolves. The other thing that has to evolve is the special teams. Now, I don't know what we would learn in a spring-like setting, except that, they'll nail down the punter position and the kicker and all that. We'll get a better idea of actually who's running the special teams,
right?
Which I believe to be Bill Bush, who doesn't have the name. He doesn't have the title of special teams assistant, or what do you call it, Parker?
Analyst,
yeah. But he's running it. I just wonder how Frost will address that whole thing.
Yeah.
Those are 2 things. And I just I'm interested in just the general posture of Eric Chinander and the defense. Is this a program that will sort of embrace the notion of leaning hard on the defense? Because that's not what it was like when Frost came in, right?
Yeah.
So those are the things that are sort of on my mind.
Baz, what do you think? What do you want to learn this spring?
I don't think it's any different than, a lot of the stuff that you guys have said already. What are those skill positions going to look like at running back and receiver? What's Samari Toure going to look like? And Marquise Stepp? What's the defensive backfield going to look like with those top end guys? Have they taken another step forward? It's just what does Adrian Martinez look like when
Yeah, I didn't even mention that. I mean, the quarterback situation.
Yeah, obviously what kind of progress has Adrian made? What does the guy that's going to back him up look like? Because we really haven't seen him yet. And Parker mentioned this already, just with the lack of spring ball last year. We never got a chance to see Logan Smothers do much of anything. So I'm interested to see all those things, really. And again, like Parker said, you don't maybe get a whole lot out of what you see in the spring, but at the same time, you can at least kind of form some ideas going into the summer of what it might look like, come fall.
I think there's one thing that's worth stressing with Logan Smothers too. Like he's been on campus now for 14 months. So it's not like the coaching staff has no idea what they have in him.
Yeah.
But really, with the way that last year was so disjointed, there's not the coaching staff probably doesn't know exactly what they have with Logan Smothers, just from a physical standpoint at this point. Once they got back last summer and were preparing for a season, we heard from Mario Verduzco about this. Mario had enough work on his plate getting two quarterbacks in position to play regularly in Martinez and Luke McCaffrey. Like there were not very many reps to go around, for Logan Smothers to operate with anything resembling the top, anything but the scout team basically. And it's not like in a regular week of game week practice, like Scott Frost and Mario Verduzco are not lording over the scout team and watching in detail about how that stuff goes. That's just not how it works. They're getting ready, they're game planning and getting ready for a game. So I'm very curious Logan Smothers he's a really young guy and he's got years of football in front of him at the college level, but it's a critical spring for him because I think he has the opportunity to open eyes, not only for people like us, which what does that matter, but for his coaches and teammates too, to show that, yeah, look, I can be the number 2 guy and we don't need to go get another guy to come in the event that Adrian Martinez misses time. So there's a lot in front of Logan Smothers for being a young guy this spring. And then similarly, not to be on too much of a young guy track here, but I do think that spring is one of the times where we sort of talk about young players and new players more. But man, there's a lot of young players on defense that might not necessarily have starting roles this year, but that I think it'll be interesting to see where they're at. Some of whom missed time last year with injury. Guys like Blaze Gunnarsson and Jamari Butler at outside linebacker as freshmen. Guys like Braxton Clark, who's a little bit older at corner, or Javen Wright and Miles Farmer. What do their roles look like? What positions are they playing? Javen Wright's a guy that could be a safety. He could be an outside linebacker. When he came in at first, he was listed as a corner. So, he's a guy, he said the other day on Twitter, he's 6'4.5" and 210 pounds. I mean, that's a guy who they're going to try to figure out, are we ready to put him on the field? Had an MCL injury last year and missed the whole year. But by all accounts was playing really well in camp when he got hurt. So to me, there's a lot of there's questions to answer that are really going to matter on Saturdays, beginning right away on August 28th. Who are your best 5 on the offensive line? Who starts at corner opposite Cam Taylor-Britt? Who's the number 2 quarterback? What is the running back? These are tangible position battles that need to be solved. They have 5 months to solve them.
Oh, listen, like I said, there has to be urgency. The good coaching staffs of this world have a very good handle on who their starters are coming out of spring.
Yeah.
If you don't, then you're probably not doing your job correctly. Listen to Nick Saban over here. But I do think they need to solve that. I don't think you want a lot of loose ends that way. The quarterback thing, now, Parker, what are the chances that they will – what do you think they have to see in order not to look for a quarterback in a transfer portal at the end of spring?
Yeah, that's a great question. To me, you want – and I don't think we do this sometimes where it's Heinrich Harburg from Kearney Catholic, because we in the media see him as a little bit more of a project, and because he played in Class C1 in Nebraska and all that, I think we just write off right away. We have this habit of sort of writing off any possibility that he's ready to play a role as a freshman. We shouldn't do that. I don't know anything that nobody else knows or anything like that, but I think what they need to see is that they have at least one of those 2 guys, Logan Smothers or Heinrich Harburg, is a legitimate number 2 option behind Adrian Martinez. And in their heart of hearts, do they feel like they could get through a game with Matt Masker, who's going to be in his 4th year now in the program, walk on from Kearney, if they really need to? Do you believe, in a way, the answer is, if Adrian Martinez was down for a couple of weeks and you had Logan Smothers, Heinrich Harburg, and Matt Masker, do you believe that you could go out and beat Purdue or beat Minnesota, beat who's in front of you? Obviously, is Matt Masker going to beat Ohio State? Maybe not, but can you compete with those guys? And are you good enough as a program to win a game or 2 without Adrian Martinez if you have to? Because, Adrian's played through a lot and he's played in most football games that Nebraska's played, but he's missed a little bit of time in each of his 3 years. So they got to feel good that they can go out there and not be doing a disservice to the rest of the roster by what the options behind Adrian Martinez look like. And if they say, we can make it, then they might go for it.
I keep saying urgency, but there's urgency. This is year 4. Frost has not had a winning season. People now are looking at this like, okay, I mean, at the very least, you need to be in a bowl game. I mean, it's pretty much come down to that. We're now at a time where there has to be results, tangible results. You okay, Bazzy?
Yeah, I just dropped my phone. We're good.
And I think that makes the spring interesting. That makes everything interesting to me.
Yep.
I mean, this is not, it's the conversation's gotten more serious. And so back to the quarterback thing, it's not, they have to look at that very seriously. If Adrian goes down, which he does every year, are you prepared to win games with the backup? Because now you have to win games. It's not just a cute little story. We have this Logan Smothers guy, and let's see how it goes. No, it can't be that anymore.
Right.
It's got to be Logan Smothers. Is he ready to beat good Big Ten teams? And that's the conversation just feels more real all the way around to me.
It's interesting because if you like, then the next part of that conversation though is, if not, who are you going to add in the transfer portal that is going to be, if you're going to add a quarterback in the transfer portal, simple, like if they get to that point after the spring, you have to at least give that guy, you have to at least say to him like, hey, look, if you beat Adrian Martinez, great, you'll start. Like you can't, I've seen people say, oh, they need to thread this needle where it's like a guy who's not, he's not going to start. He's okay with being a backup, but like that player doesn't necessarily, like, what are the chances that you're going to find a player who's cool with not starting? That's fine. I'll be the backup, but gives you a better chance of beating those same Big Ten teams than Logan Smothers does.
Right. No, it's a good point. So where this conversation naturally winds to is this is a big spring for Logan Smothers. Yeah. I guarantee what they want is for him to show that we can beat anybody in the Big Ten with you. That's what they're looking for probably every day, right?
Yeah. And Hoiberg too, to some degree. I mean, Hoiberg, like Adrian Martinez arrived at the same time as Heinrich Hoiberg on the calendar and started week 1. He walked out there against Akron before that game got called off, and then he played well against Colorado the next week. It can be done. And you don't need Hoiberg to win the starting job, but you want those young guys to show that, hey, you know what? Yeah, you have a lot of development ahead of you. You're going to get a lot better. But if we really needed to, we could get through a game, with you playing.
Well, isn't there some pressure too, with those guys being ready on your public image, like how you recruit guys? Like if you're going out and getting a transfer guy, you're basically saying those guys aren't ready. And then aren't people going to say, well, why are they here if they're not ready to step in and play right away at the most important position on the field? So yeah, there's interest certainly in what those guys look like, but I think there's interest too, just from the public image of, well, are these guys recruiting the right guys? I like you said, Parker, Adrian Martinez has obviously been really good for a lot of the time since he's been here, and that was a recruiting win for Nebraska. But what have they done otherwise in recruiting at the quarterback position? You look at the little bit of a revolving door that they've had there and some of the guys that have played, and that's no knock on those guys, but it is what it is. They haven't been able to find somebody that's better than Adrian Martinez, so I think there's some of that too, is if you guys are recruiting the right guys, that should show up, and those guys should be ready to go by this fall.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. They've had 5 quarterbacks leave since Frost was hired, and since Adrian got to campus. Now, not all of them, they didn't recruit all of them. Patrick O'Brien left during spring ball that first year, and then Tristan Gebbia left right before. And then Andrew Bunch left, and Noah Vedral left, and Luke McCaffrey left. So, that happens to some degree. Like Adrian Martinez has held down the starting job for the most part, except for those couple of games last fall where McCaffrey took over. But if you have an entrenched starter, you're going to run off other options. That's life at quarterback these days. But it's one of the reasons why I think I think fans focus on quarterback a lot. We focus on quarterback a lot. But one of the things to just sort of like pivot this conversation a little bit, I've been going through the last couple of weeks and doing sort of like position by position look at the roster. And one of the things that I keep thinking to myself is, there's definitely some positions where there's a lot of questions, like running back and wide receiver. But by and large, I mean, especially on defense, you go through these lists and you look at the guys they've got and you think, yeah, they should be pretty solid. Like the overall level of talent on this roster is like, they're built to compete now. They're going to be young in some spots. They're going to need some new guys to contribute in some spots, but this is a team that should compete in the Big Ten West. And so they really can't fail the quarterback question this spring and summer, because if you can have the rest of it, but if you don't have a quarterback, it's going to be awfully hard to make ends meet in the Big Ten.
Yeah, by the way, both Moose and Frost have said we have what it takes to compete for the West Division, and that should be the case this year. And again, all the conversations kind of start right there. We'll see what happens, but yeah, a lot of this falls on Adrian's shoulders as it usually does. But I think they've done a good job of putting more pieces around him. I've cut Adrian a lot of slack because they haven't had enough around him. They've had to lean too hard on that position. Yeah. Sometimes they lean hard on it anyway. But I think they've had to because they haven't had enough around him. That's why Stepp and Toure are important. That's why Xavier Betts is important. That's why Fedoni getting here is important. And that's why the offensive line improvement's important. They got to take pressure off Adrian and whoever the backups are.
That offensive line conversation is an interesting one, and I'm sure over the month of April we'll touch on a lot of different areas. But I find the offensive line very interesting because I think they have a chance. They have a chance to be better than they were in 2020, and it wasn't great. It was inconsistent in 2020. There were times when they looked really good, times when they didn't get a lot of push. Obviously, Cam Jurgens had snapping issues on and off sort of through the season. But I think that maybe we're not giving quite enough credence to the fact that there's 95 starts and 118 games played that are no longer on the roster between Brendan Hymas, Matt Farniok, and Bo Wilson. Like, I'm not going to sit here and say like, man, Bo Wilson, what a critical loss. No, but he played a lot of football in Nebraska. And Brendan Hymas was the left tackle for the better part of 4 years. So there's 3 full years after he started his career at right tackle. So that's an awful lot of snaps, an awful lot of playing time, and a lot of wisdom that's left that room. And it's not to say that they can't like meet or exceed the level that they were at last year, because the program, they really like the talent they have in that room. But it's no sure thing that they're going to roll out there and, Turner Corcoran and whoever starts at right guard are just immediately going to be big upgrades over Brendan Hymas and Matt Farniok. They might be, and they might be in time, but I don't think that's a guarantee on the first day of spring ball or on August 28th.
Nope. So, hey, who is
Nope.
As far as the punter position goes, is that Daniel Cherney? Is that what that's going to look like there?
Yeah, he's healthy now. He missed all of last season with a leg injury. I think you'd have to consider him the favorite to win the job over Will Pristup. I mean, he's the only scholarship specialist on the roster. Like, they gave him a scholarship last year for a reason. And the only reason he didn't play probably was because he got hurt during camp. Now, like, Connor Culp probably going to be a scholarship player by the time the season rolls around. Like, that they usually do that in the summer. He earned it. He was the Big Ten's place kicker of the year last year. But yeah, I would think that you would see Daniel Cherney, the freshman from Australia, win the punting job, over the course of the offseason.
You know what I'd pay a lot of money to do right now? And I mean this. If one of the Nebraska officials could set me up with a one-on-one interview with Bill Bush, and ask him what he sees on film of last year's special teams. What were the problems? What does he have to fix? How big of a job does he have? Because the special teams part of this is gigantic. I mean, if they can
they were
be
bad. It was bad last year.
Yeah, if they can be good on defense and special teams, that gives your offense a little wiggle room. You can't, if you're good in 2 of the 3 areas, there might be enough there to challenge for the West. But if you're only good in 1 of the areas, forget it. I mean, you're looking at 4-8, 5-7, something in that range. So whoever's in charge of special teams, and it's Bill Bush, I would just love to get in his head about what. I mean, they hired him and he went to work immediately. I mean, he's there at 6 a.m. He's doing stuff. He's looking at film. He's trying to determine what needed to be fixed and who's going to help him do it. So I'd love to know that. I don't think that's going to happen. They don't typically line you up with analysts, but that would be great. I'd love to know that. I'd
advise you against paying for access.
Yeah,
isn't everything about money?
You should just use your considerable sort of social capital, your heft in that regard as a local columnist to make it happen.
Baz, you got anything to say about my heft?
I have nothing to say about your heft that I would tell you to your face. No.
I guess paying for interviews, that's not the best idea.
Yeah, we try our best not to do that.
That's not very professional either.
If there's any student journalists out there, just sort of disregard.
Yeah, don't do that.
We don't do that. We don't do that.
We're not condoning that.
But to all the students, I mean, money is just make a lot of money.
Just make a lot of money.
And you know what that means?
That's just that easy, guys.
What's that?
Don't do this. Don't do this.
Well, yeah. I don't know. Stephen A. Smith would tell you, do what I'm doing. Stephen A. Smith.
Yeah.
I know who Stephen A. Smith is, yes.
Yeah.
You too could be a student journalist and then make $8 million a year firing off hot takes at ESPN.
Hot takes.
It's just that easy.
Hot takes.
Hot takes.
Do we have any more hot takes?
Any more heat, or should we wrap this baby up?
I think that's enough for now. I think we don't want to go overboard,
We do not want to go overboard.
You don't want to give the people too much.
Yeah. There's a sweet spot. There's a sweet spot.
I think we're in it right now.
Revel in this and then come back for more next.
Has that young Hoiberg called you yet, Baz?
Am I still on the Zoom call?
All right. It was a dumb question. I just did it for posterity, though. So he hasn't called.
We'll really break down the Sam Hoiberg signing next week on the podcast. Until then, thanks for listening.